Welcome to the Ward 1 community meeting on Monday, November 14th, 2022. I am Ward 1 Councilor Bernie Schultz. Tonight we have Gary Withington, Superintendent of the Streets. He's filling in for Commissioner Erickson, who called me this morning and said he had a terrible cold and wouldn't be able to make it. So Gary graciously said he would step in for Commissioner Erickson. I think the mic is on. Is it on? Yep, I think it's on. And we also have Police Chief Ernie Martineau, as well as Traffic Supervisor Sergeant Dan Boudreau here to also discuss some of the issues that winter will present to us, which is right around the corner. So we'll get started tonight. Chief Martineau is going to present, and then after he is done and Sergeant Boudreau is done, you can ask some questions before Superintendent of the Streets, Gary Withington, starts his presentation. Chief Martineau.
Thank you, Councilor. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Ward 1 meeting for the fall of 2022. Councilor asked me to put a few things together this evening to discuss things that are usually items of interest this time of year. And I'm going to start with a couple of things that I passed out to you, because I like to talk about the importance behind the parking snow ban each winter and also the responsibility of clearing your sidewalks. And for those at home, if you're looking for this information, please feel free to reach out to myself or Sergeant Boudreau, and we'll be happy to get it to you. But here we are in November, and it's inevitable. Our first significant snowfall is going to happen within the next 4 to 6 weeks, I would say. So it's important that we talk about the importance about the snow ban, snow emergencies, and the parking when there is a snow emergency. What we try to do is we monitor the forecast between the mayor's office, the superintendent's office, and the police department. And when we see any type of snowstorm with significant snowfall coming in, the superintendent, with recommendations from myself and the mayor, will post a snow ban. By city ordinance, we're supposed to get that out within 6 hours. I think we've been trying to, in the last couple of years, we've been putting it out almost 24 hours in advance, just to give people that extra time to get their vehicles off the street. We're very much aware of some of the hardships within your ward, where a lot of people don't have off-street parking. And in most years, most residents do their best to get their cars parked somewhere else so our snow plows and Santas can get through the streets. Last year, the police department issued almost 500 parking tickets during the winter months, which is significantly lower than what we've had in the past. We've seen some years where we could issue anywhere from 1,000 to 3,000 tickets. So I think our message, getting it out there early, getting it out there to the residents, has been extremely helpful in trying to keep, the cars off the street so the DPW can get their trucks through there and get them plowed out and get them opened up. So I thank the residents of Ward 1 for just doing that with the historic low number last year in snow tickets, and hopefully this winter will be the same. Another topic during the winter months is the clearing of sidewalks. I handed each of you the city ordinance, what it specifically says on the removal of snow and ice from city sidewalks, private sidewalks. And what people need to understand in this, if you do have a sidewalk in front of your house, it is city ordinance that the owner must clear and sand the sidewalk to create a walking path of at least 36 inches wide. This is extremely important, and I try to really impress upon residents when I'm speaking to how important this is. If a sidewalk is clear, that keeps someone out of the street from walking, especially if it's kids in the neighborhood. I understand sometimes there's a hardship. Some of the elderly can't get their sidewalks cleared. If someone in Ward 1 is having an issue with getting their sidewalk clear, please reach out to my office or Sergeant Boudreau. Maybe we can facilitate someone to help you with that matter. But you need, just like parking tickets last year, we saw a significant increase in participation with residents clearing their sidewalks. So I'm very grateful for that as well. If anyone here or anybody at home has questions regarding overnight parking or snow-related stuff, please feel free to reach out to, once again, myself or Sergeant Boudreau. Staying with the traffic theme, I'd like to just discuss briefly what has been happening in Main Street and Boulder Drive. As everybody is aware, we went through this major conversion this year. There was a lot of apprehension and unease as we turned the switch and went back to two-way Main Street, two-way Boulder Drive. We've been monitoring traffic, crashes, speed data, the amount of cars on both, and I'm pleased to announce that we have seen very, very little impact as it relates to crashes, the amount of cars driving on the street. I think it's worked well thus far. Recently, we filed a petition with City Council to adopt the changes to Main Street as it relates to the conversion, and within the next couple of public safety meetings, those will become the final passage of what is on Main Street, what is on Boulder Drive. But I can say with all honesty, we're very pleased with what has happened with Main Street and Boulder Drive. We see that cars are looking for alternative routes. They're taking, a side street here, a side street there. We're seeing an increase of traffic on Boulder Drive, which is good for the people that, are using Main Street as a thoroughway. They're using Boulder Drive. So I think what we tried to accomplish is working well, and you're still going to see much more to come in the next year or two as we move forward with the replacement of the Water Street Bridge, which is going to have significant impact on downtown. And we will make sure that the residents are well aware, especially in Ward 1 with Water Street. That will impact it at the gateway of your ward. So we will make sure that you're kept in the loop when it's regarding the Water Street Bridge. Before I go any further, does anybody have any questions about snow removal, parking bans, sidewalks that I could answer?
I have a question about crosswalks, Chief
Yeah,
Martin.
I was going to go to that next.
Okay.
I was going to go to that next. So I would say the majority of the concerns that come to my office or come into the police department, either myself or Sergeant Boudreau, are traffic related. And they're traffic related. They're dealing with crosswalks, speeding cars. A day doesn't go by that our department doesn't receive some type of phone call, whether it's a speeding car, a crosswalk violation. So traffic continues to be, just like any other city in Commonwealth or across the nation, traffic continues to be one of the major concerns. Each and every year, the Fitchburg Police Department applies for a traffic grant. My staffing levels are still low. We're continually working on increasing our staffing levels. But because staffing levels are low, we rely heavily on grant opportunities where we can assign police officers on an overtime basis to hit some of these hot spots. Crosswalks is an important thing. As winter comes, I don't get as many complaints on crosswalks, but in the last 2 to 3 months, we've had significant complaints about crosswalk violations, people not stopping for those that are engaged in walking. With this recent grant that we just were awarded, crosswalks will be one of our target enforcements. We start doing traffic enforcement within the next month or so. We'll be concentrated on drunk driving around the holidays, around New Year's Eve. So we take that $61,000 that we've been awarded by the state, and we will use every penny of it to try to address certain areas within the city that are some of the most significant. Unfortunately, Ward 1 has the distinguished title of having the highest crash zones. Specifically, I think you own 2 of them. Water and Renusnock, and in front of Central Plaza. Those are the 2 highest crash zones in the city. And I was just referring to our annual report, and knowing I should have brought a few more, but this annual report has all of our data from the previous year. It talks about crash reports, it talks about speeding, citations. It's a very well-done document, and I give credit to my crime analysis, Chrissy Fisher, for putting this together. This is available on the city website, so if anybody ever wants to access everything that happens within the Fitchburg Police Department in a given year, the information's in here, whether it's arrests or some of the programs that we run throughout the year. But it's a great document to fall back onto. And as we're talking about crash data, that is all in there that you can refer to. Is there any questions on this stuff that yes?
What's the website? PittsburghPolice.com?
The City of Fitchburg website, and go to the police department. If you go to the City of Fitchburg's website, then you go to the link for the police department. Our annual report is on that website.
All right, I did not come here for that, but I'm going to comment on it. Winoosoc and Water Street, people run that light continuously. Do you know how dark it is at night? There's no street lights around there.
It's funny you said that. I picked up on that. Now that daylight savings has changed, it's even that jumps out at you that much more.
Yeah, there's no street lights, and that's very
And
dangerous.
I think it's really dark right around in front of the dollar store in that area.
But that whole section.
Yep.
There's no street lights till way back on either way.
Yeah.
So it's very dark. And
I agree, and that's something that
if it's raining, it's even worse.
I'm going to have discussion with the commissioner on that one. I'm not sure what our options are there, but I agree with you 100%. It is dark down there. There is a street light located on the inbound lane on the corner of Water and Winoosoc. But that does not light up the intersection. It's such a large intersection. It is poorly lit, and part of that results in the highest crash zone in the city. So, thank you for bringing that up.
One of the highest crash zones, the highest crash zone during the winter months. There are more crashes during the winter months or during the other.
It's broken down by a month in here. This total page that I'm speaking of specifically, this is a 24-month period. I'm not sure if she breaks it down by the months, to be honest with you, and I apologize for that. Yes, we don't break it down by the months. We break it down by the top 20 streets where there crashes, and Water Street is the top of that list.
I can tell you right now, I've gone through that light in the winter months, but only because it's not standard well. And I've been very lucky that people pay attention to the horn, and I haven't gotten hit.
Well, I will defer the standing to
I just wanted to say it,
Yep.
because you're all sitting right there.
Yep. This is a great opportunity, even when there's a smaller crowd at these ward meetings. This is good information that because we just, it's good information to hear it back from you, so that's important. And I did know about the darkness down there, so.
Like I said, I'm not here for that, but I'm glad you brought that up, because that's, say it constantly because I'm coming home from, Sterling or Leominster or something, and I have to go up Winoosoc Road, and it's very, very dark.
Yeah. There's some other matters that traffic stuff that's going also around Ward 1 that we're looking at with petitions right now. Anything with speed-related data. I know the sergeant has been diligently putting out his trailers trying to identify what times the speeding is actually happening so we can have a better handle on. I don't have enough police officers to put them on every street for 24 hours a day, so we really try. We do the best we can with the data that's presented to us. Everything we do for deployment is data-driven, so if we have a complaint on, say, Water and Winoosoc with speeding cars there, we will isolate that, and the sergeant will bring down his speed counters, which some of we have speed counters that don't draw our attention to themselves, so we get accurate. You've seen our speed trailers, and when people see those, they usually slow down. But we have some other ones that we put up and people don't see them.
Do we have anything to show that when on the lights, when anybody is running the lights?
No. Are you referring to what people think of the cameras up top?
Right. We don't have cameras like that?
No,
that
those are sensors, and
Right, those lights for detection, if there's a car sitting there waiting, it'll trigger them to let.
yeah,
get a
those are
green light.
sensors that will
But I mean,
trigger the
I know
lights.
we don't have the money, okay. But that is something that we should have at some of these lights where people are known for running them. I mean,
It comes down to enforcement and having my people enforce the areas that have the highest concern. Like I said, we have 28 square miles, I believe, in the city, but you know, with the correct data, I can put the right amount of police officers in areas that need the most attention. I know it's not your ward, but this past summer, my office was inundated on Ashburnham Street on speeding concerns. And the sergeant went up there with his trailers. We put up the trailers. We put up our covert speed detectors. We determined what time of the day, what day of the week the most of the speeding was happening, so we can narrow our enforcement down. And by narrowing our enforcement down, we were able to reduce significantly the speeding going on Ashburnham Street. So that's the stuff that we get. So when a resident calls the department and they have a speeding concern, it doesn't go on deaf ear. It goes to the sergeant. We look at the data in that neighborhood. If it warrants it, we will put out our speed detectors, and we will do a study and determine if there is a speed problem. A lot of times, we find that, in fact, there is no speed problem, and it's one or two cars. You know, but when a resident sees that one car doing double the speed, that's a problem. But overall, in the totality of things, it's really not a speeding issue at that given time. I think that was the gist of what I wanted to talk about tonight.
Question, Chief.
Yeah.
I'd like to know how long this particular intersection has been identified as a crash site.
I would have to go back in our annual reports, but I would venture to say it is the most traveled street in the city too. So there's a correlation of how many vehicles are traveling on that corridor. But I would venture to say that Water Street in general has been in the top 3 for the last 20 plus years.
20 plus years. It's been a significant crash site.
It has.
And it continues to be so.
It has. If you look at for instance, in 2021, the police department registered 37 crashes at that intersection. I'll go backwards. In 2020, we had 22, and then in 2019, we had 24 crashes at that intersection. I'd have to go back further in the annual reports to see what that data looks like. I would tend to believe that the crashes were probably higher prior to that major configuration of water in Woonsocket. I'm sure that had some type of reduction in that crash zone. But like I said, the sheer volume of the amount of cars that travel on that roadway, inevitably there will be some crashes.
Recognizing those factors, that there's increased traffic, wouldn't that require a greater focus on that?
Absolutely.
And so what do? Do you assign more police officers? Do you have speed indicators? I forget what you said.
Speed indicators.
Yeah, speed indicators.
So,
But obviously or evidently, it hasn't been effective.
I wouldn't call it ineffective. I would, yeah. So what we do with this annual report, like I said, our police department is 100% data-driven. So all of my supervisors, we meet quarterly, we talk about the numbers, we look at where the data is coming from. Obviously, Water Street has always been a concern. I have one police officer that works your ward, I have one police officer. So in between calls for service, the amount of time that can be actually focused on water in Woonsocket is limited. I have Sergeant Boudreau in traffic, and I have one traffic officer. So the resources are limited. That's why it's so important to really have data at your hands. I would love to have 0 crashes there, but when you have 20, 30,000 cars a day, this is going to happen.
That's also a state road, correct?
What's that?
It's also a state road.
It is. It is. Yep. So,
Chief, I'm sorry. Is there any department within the state that you could possibly apply for more funds to, I don't know, buy temporary cameras that you can go to these hot spots, that they would have money? I know you don't get enough money from the state. That's a habit I know has happened through the years. But would there be some kind of a place where we could apply for more money to probably get temporary cameras set up at these intersections, and then once you've got all of that for visual and so forth, then you can move the camera to the next hotspot.
Yeah.
It's just a thought. Is there somebody that we could, apply to or something like that?
I look at every dollar I can apply for. Currently, we're managing almost $1.5 million in grants at the police department. So if there's a dollar out there, we're looking for it. I go back to, and I don't know what the volume of vehicles on Water Street is, but it has to be 30 to 50,000 cars, somewhere in that ballpark.
Yeah, I'm trying to, I just did a speed study over there. We usually do them for like 7 or 14 days, and I don't have it with me. But it's, when you see these studies, I'll do a study for, say, 7 days, and I won't even say Water Street. We'll take what I'd call like a secondary street, and we see like thousands of cars in 7 days. It's
Bartel, what was Bartel? Like
Bartel
15?
was 20, I think closer to like 20,000 cars, and I'm talking one way, so then you double that.
So you can imagine if we're seeing 10,000 cars a day on Bartel, it's got to be at least double or triple on Water Street. Now, I'm not saying any accidents are unacceptable. 37 with 30,000 cars a day, you kind of have to weigh it and see, is this, how much attention do I put down there with enforcement? Because I'd have to park a cruiser right in the middle of the intersection.
Can any of this data?
That's an idea.
Yeah, and I would need 150 cops to do that.
Chief, if I can add to what the chief said too, when we're talking about accidents like this and 37 there, most of if you look at the report, probably those top 5 to 7 might interchange a little which one's the worst, but you're going to see every year that those are our top accident places. That goes into call volume. And when we investigate these accidents, not everything is speed related, not everything. A lot of it is people on their cell phones, people doing other things. Maybe some of those 37 were rear ends or minor accidents, but they're still accidents. But when you talk about what we can do to stop that, the only thing we can do to stop a person from not paying attention is to try to catch them doing that and cite them. So some of this, we can try to make that intersection better, but we can't stop everybody's bad habits of driving. And when you take the call volume of how many people drive through those major intersections, that's why you're going to see that there are more accidents there than you would on some secondary street. You take some of these intersections, we talked about putting a cruiser in the middle of it, the chief just said, but some of them are very difficult even if we want to go there and do some enforcement. When you think of at the height of the day when everyone's coming home from work or going, some of those intersections are very difficult for a cruiser to be able to get where they would need to be able to see some of these things. So we have some of those limitations too. And that's why sometimes we can make it a lot better very quickly. Other times it's not as easy.
He explains it much better than I do when it comes related to traffic matters. My job is to deploy enough officers to cover this city. I'm budgeted for 83 police officers. We cover the entire city with 83 police officers. I'm currently down a significant amount of officers. That's why data is so important. I can't put that cruiser there 24 hours a day. And I understand your concerns, but
How many hours can you afford to put someone there? Not necessarily a cruiser in the middle of it. That was an exaggeration.
no, I get it. It's dependent on what robberies come in that day, what assaults come in that day. My department responds to 50,000 calls a year. So if one would do the math, if you looked at the calls for service that our police officers are responding to, 50,000 calls a year for service. And I'll break it down one step further. Tonight, 3 to 11, I have 7 police officers working. They will respond tonight between 80 and 100 calls. So that means every police officer working tonight is going to respond to 10 calls somewhere in the city. It's the sheer numbers that just, they're overwhelming sometimes.
I'm going to play the devil's advocate. Why are we short of police officers? Is it because of the budget?
The budget, I've been supported by the mayor's office. City councils have supported the mayor's budget each and every year. We're getting back to where we should be. I've been a police officer for 36 years. We've had up to, in my time, we were as high as 98 police officers, and I've seen it as low as 50 police officers. Currently, we're at 83. We've made some headway over the last several years, and we're going to continue making headway. Yeah, we just graduated 3, and we're looking to put 7 in the police academy this January. With those 7 going into the academy, that will bring my department back up to full strength, which is 83, which what we are budgeted for. But I can say that in the last 5 years, we've made strides. You know, we've gone up slowly. A couple officers this year, a couple officers this year. You know, the mayor's office has pulled in many different directions. It's not just not police officers. It's the fire department. It's DPW. Everybody has an important role to play in the city, and not to just to put all in on the police department. The mayor's office and city council, they've done a good job spreading it out, adding to DPW, adding to the fire department. It's not a perfect world, but I can say we do have the support of this administration. We have the support of this city council. And in the meantime, we're going to continue utilizing data and deploying our resources where the data tells us to go. At some point in time, if we ever get back to 96 police officers, you will see a cruiser down there. I can promise you that, but that's a few years away. And in the meantime, we will continue to use data to our advantage and deploy people, resources to the best of our ability.
You mentioned earlier, and I guess it's a question for Sergeant Boudreau, we've talked about it, is that, you know, a lot of places in Ward 1 don't have any off-street parking. So I get a lot of complaints from people about parking too close to corners, parking too close to driveways. Maybe you could talk a little bit about, Sergeant Boudreau, about that.
Parking on sidewalks, I can't walk.
That's another issue, yeah.
We also have that with the, on Rollstone Street with the walking with people leave their rubbish barrels and their recycling barrels, and then they park beside that, and they leave those out all week long, and you can't get by.
Well, I mean, you've heard me speak about our limitations with resources. That's why it's so important that as a community we work together. There's 42,000 residents. That's 42,000 people that can call the police department and tell me or tell our people there's a concern on this street. No call is too little. No call is unimportant to us. So if any resident in Ward 1 has a concern, I encourage you, call the non-emergency line. A car parked on a sidewalk is not a 911 call, but it is a general line call. And every call that comes in, and we have a sign in our communication room, it says send a car. So when people call, our dispatchers look at this big sign and it says send a car. So, and if a car is not sent, you make sure that comes to my attention, to one of my supervisors' attention. We will find out why a car wasn't sent. But that I can promise you, if you call the police department, no matter what the issue is, a car will be sent. Yes, ma'am.
We were talking about parking too close to corners. There's been an issue when you drive down Forest and you come to the stop sign at Charles on the right-hand side. There's always like a huge commercial vehicle parked there. It's a bad intersection. There's lots of accidents there. You can barely edge out, but you take your life in your hands trying to get out of there. I'm just afraid there's going to be a car coming down Charles that's going to, you know, hit us going across there. A lot of the neighbors are complaining the same thing. I'm just the only one that can make it here tonight.
Is it the same vehicle all the time?
Yes.
Yes.
Two new families, I'm sorry, Carrie.
Oh, that's okay.
Two new families moved in. I live on the corner, one of my corners there. But two new families have moved in. One of them has a U-Haul, a mid-size U-Haul truck, and the other one has it's a Hertz van.
Yeah.
And they're vying for the corner spots on both sides. On the side of the street where the fire plug is, they literally almost go nose to nose. One of your officers last week stopped, and I don't know if he gave a ticket or what, but that didn't happen. They parked around the corner. But these, and I understand it's hard to park where we are. And like I said, another family across from the other corner, they've got like 4 vehicles. So parking's at a premium right there in the intersection of Charles and Forest. But like Carrie says, in the morning, the school bus comes along and he picks up the kids on the fire plug side, and there's times when he can't get there. So, and the kids have got to stand there waiting for the truck to come down. And if that big cube van is there, you can't see up Forest. You know, it's a bad spot. It's been like that now for the last couple of weeks. They just moved in.
There's already a petition approved that we've got signs coming, maybe Superintendent Withington
So
could
any
give us an update.
intersection, the vehicle has to be at least 20 feet away from the intersection, and you have to be 5 feet away from a driveway. So if you see that someone isn't, just call the dispatch number and they'll send the route officer. Some of those are difficult, like if it's something that you see that, you know, you tell me that it's there every day at 8 o'clock or something, you send that, I could take care of it, but we have some issues, like a lot of it's at night and I'm not working. So I'll say, like, if you see something blatant, if they're within 5 feet of your driveway or within 20 feet of an intersection, just call the dispatch number. Like the chief said, sometimes the route officer might be on something more pressing, but he's going to get over there. And if he gets there, you know, before they're there, the route officers, that's their route. One officer does that for his 4 days on, and then when he's off for his 2 days, there's another officer that's there for those. So if you're calling and he's going there more often, we try our best. We know this is a tough city. A lot of people don't have the correct parking that they should have. Some people have no parking. So we try our best. We're not out there just to tag every right of way. So you might call an officer the first time. You might give them the benefit of the doubt if they're new, he hasn't seen it. We'll run the plate. We'll try to tell them, hey, you can't park there. And then if they continue to do it, then we're going to cite them. And after they get enough tickets, if they don't pay them, then the Treasurer's office, their parking control will actually go up and tow those cars once they get on a city tow list. So if there's someone that's doing this over and over and over, call dispatch and we'll keep ticketing them. And either they're going to get sick of paying fines or their vehicle's going to get towed eventually.
I feel bad for them because, you know, I understand they just moved into the neighborhood and there's very little parking on Charles because Charles is like a runway. But, you know, and I hate to be a pain.
No.
You know what? When I see the kids out there and they're putting the kids in danger, then I got to say.
Safety presses everything.
So Forest and Child's white cube van, and it will be there in the morning.
Comes
Just say
in
it's
the
there
parking
now.
ban.
Right on the corner, I almost got it.
We have looked at that intersection. Sergeant Butcher and I have been there, and the city council has approved signs for that intersection. No
And I
parking
actually
from the
have,
other corner.
I've put it out several times, you know, to the shifts. The officers are going up there because it's not just where you are. We get calls for that whole area. Like you said, it's very tight. Parking is at a premium. So we have to try to play that happy. Now, if it's a larger vehicle, most of these roads are supposed to have a 10-foot unobstructed lane. If we strictly enforce that, we would lose probably 80% of the parking in the city. So we kind of have to play it street by street. But if it's a larger vehicle and it's really making a hazard, then please bring that to my attention. I think I gave those numbers. I can give a card. Send me a picture and an email, and I'll check out something like that, because that would be something. And we've had it a couple times with someone parking a bus. And
Bus
we have to
on-
just go and tell
on
them
Walton
that,
Street.
you know, if this was your car, I could let you do it, but I can't let something that big. So if you're seeing a big vehicle, bring that to my attention. If it's a car or, you know, a pickup truck or something, call dispatch and we'll go out there and cite them if we have to.
It's our intent to resolve by educating and talking to the resident. The last thing we want to do is hit someone with a money fine. So we always try to resolve it first by having conversation and just trying to educate the person. But I assure you, we will look at that cube van. I'm sure the sergeant will be out there tomorrow morning looking at it, so.
And the signs for that intersection are on order, we're just waiting for them to come in to be put up.
I have the same problem on the corner of Valley Street and Canton Street. What's happening is they're parking, if you're coming on Valley Street, they're parking on that right-hand side, almost from the corner, sometimes even beyond and up. So when you're going off of Valley Street, you actually have to go almost in the middle of the street to see cars coming. And this is continuously, not just with them working down there.
I know it's gotten worse. We've been challenged with the renovations down there.
And that's fine. But when they're gone, and at night, people are doing it still. So it's not the people that are working there that are doing it. It's the people that are living there. I know we're having parking lots made. They had parking lots. They do not use them all winter. In the wintertime, DPW has had to go around the cars to plow, and nothing's been done about it.
See, that's great, good information. If that information comes to us, we have a great relationship with the director at Fitchburg Housing. It's just one phone call to the next, and then the director can speak to his tenants.
Well, what's happening is most of these tenants, the cars are not registered to them, so they can't park in the parking lot. That's the problem.
Yeah.
You have to be a resident to park in the parking lot.
Right.
So the cars aren't registered to them. They're registered to someone else. So that's why they're parking in the street.
So I'm not sure if I had talked to you, I had gone down there probably a couple of months ago. Someone had called in a complaint. And again, sometimes when I go out there during the day, I don't see what you're seeing. So again,
You took a picture, right? You took a picture of it?
if they're within 20 feet of that intersection, then just call dispatch when it's happening so that an officer can go and look at that. Well, that's
We do,
good. Then-
50,000 of them a year.
But that's the only way we can stop it. Like I said,
And don't feel bad
if
about
I look at
calling.
it during the day and it's not there, I can't do anything about it.
It's not, I feel it's not a major crime, and I'm taking you away from a major crime when the crime's going on.
I need to change that mentality. If it's important to you, you call the police department. And I can't reiterate that enough. I used to hear that from my mother when she was alive. I hate to bother you. Well, you know what? That's our job. So please, call us. And if our calls go up from 50,000 to 60,000, that means we're responding to your concerns. So please, do not hesitate to call the police department. Please.
And they will prioritize that. If there's something that...
Exactly.
If there's a domestic or something like that happening, they're not going to have them go to a parking complaint.
I've done this before in different ward meetings, and I say call, and they do call, and I may not get a cruiser there for 30 minutes, even up to an hour. So we try to educate our dispatchers to let the residents know your call's important to us, almost like Verizon. Your call's important to us, but we are responding to an emergency, and it could take some time.
I drive an SUV, so I'm up a little higher, and I'm challenged anyhow because I'm only 5'2", so but as you pull up, it's really dangerous. And sometimes I have my great grandkids with me, so I'm really concerned that, I'm going to get hit. But I will call you.
Do we have any other questions for Chief Martineau or Sergeant Boudreau before we move on to Superintendent of the Streets, Gary Withington?
We should talk about educating people is, they don't stop for people in a crosswalk. Even at Upper Common, where the lights are flashing, I've been almost hit numerous times because they just fly right down Main Street or up Main Street.
I can honestly say there's not a lot of flying going up and down Main Street these days. Traffic, the speed on Main Street has been drastically reduced. But before you got here, we were talking about crosswalks, and part of our intentions with some of our grant money is to specifically address crosswalks. When people call the station and they have a complaint about crosswalks, first of all, we have to ask them, were you actively engaged in crossing? Because someone just standing on the sidewalk, traffic's not stopping. But if you start to actively engage in that crossing, then it's the law. You do have to stop. And you're correct. It happens. And I'm not saying it doesn't. So we are planning on doing crosswalk enforcement.
And I talked to Nick about the crosswalks up on South Street that haven't been repainted because he said the police department would like to have some controls on them because you have the crosswalk at the school on Charles Street that has not been repainted across South Street, and also you have up on Pine Street.
Yep.
So some of those have not been repainted.
Yeah.
They were painted years ago before we had ADA compliance and other regulations. So the DPW, until we can do handicapped accessible ramps for them and satisfy all these requirements that have come on in recent years, they can't paint them because it would put the city at, could get sued if something happens. So we're working on them. Like you can see that they started on South Street.
Charles Street, they've got, the crosswalks on Charles Street have been painted. The whole intersection's been redone by the school, but going across South Street, you can barely see the crosswalk.
Right, they're working.
There is a sign up for the crosswalk.
They're working on that right now. If you saw them doing the sidewalk repairs that they've been doing, that's to put those ADA ramps in. So until all that's done, then you have to do an engineering study. So that's why you're not seeing the actual crosswalk itself being painted yet.
You know, we saw firsthand this year how important painting on the ground is as far as controlling traffic. When we first turned over Main Street, we put paint everywhere. We put arrows going this way, arrows going that way. When we talk about intersections like Water and Winoosknock, having clearly delineated paint marks in the ground is so important. And I can tell you, the superintendent, he understands where we're coming from. He saw firsthand how important it is to get paint on the ground. You know, as we're moving into the winter months, we're limited on getting paint on the ground. But as spring comes around, intersections like you spoke about, it's important that we get them painted. Main Street, we need to get them painted so the average person driving has some idea of where they're heading, where the arrow, can I take a left, can I take a right? So, you know, in the next year, we're going to continue having that discussions with the commissioner and really focusing on painting and painting a lot so people are well aware where they should be operating.
I think we got one more question in the back, Chief.
Yeah, I can go to all of you, because you were just talking about crosswalks. Now, with the time change and everything, I leave fairly early, and some of the high school kids congregate for Monty Tech and from Pittsburgh High on that corner of Pine and South, and they cross the street all over the place because there's no designated spot for them to walk. I'm an educator, so I'm a person who tends to stop for the kids, but I've watched many kids almost get hit because there are no crosswalk spaces, so people are not stopping for them. So I understand that it all has to do with the crosswalks, the sidewalks, and the handicapped accessibility, but right now, as a parent, as an educator, I'm looking at these kids trying to cross the street, and they can't because the traffic is speeding up and down the road, and they're crossing wherever they can. Right. I guess my concern is that somebody's going to get hit, and they're only teenagers just trying to do what they're supposed to do, catch the bus to school.
Right. The DPW is addressing all these sidewalks, but there's so many of them around town.
No, and I understand that, but
Yes, we will.
As a person's point of view, trying to watch kids, and now that the shift in light has changed, they're crossing the street, and it's not safe for them.
Right.
But I understand what you're saying about the recreation of the sidewalks and whatnot. I just wanted to point out that there are kids trying to cross streets in the dark, in the morning, or in the afternoon, and it's dark, and they're just taking a chance when they step off the curb onto South Street, because South Street is a very, very busy, fast road.
So are they crossing over to the other side because that's the way the bus?
They're going one way or the other to catch the bus or getting off of a bus.
Okay.
So the buses would be dropping them at the right spot or picking them up at the right spot. But when I leave, the bus isn't there usually. They're crossing the streets trying to maneuver the cars that are coming up or going down these roads without getting hit. Does that make sense?
Yes. But the reason I was asking is if they're all trying to cross, say, to the other side of South Street to catch the bus coming that way, then if it's a big enough issue and there's enough of them and there's a problem, school transportation can be asked to move the bus stop to the other side of the roadway.
Well, I think what it is the side that's on Pine and South is Monty Tech. And the group, because they all meet at the same time, is on the other side of South in front of the big white house across from Pine, and that's Fitchburg High. So those two buses have already separated the kids so they know what bus gets what, because they come around the same time, so one stops on South and one stops on Pine, because I've actually gotten caught up in that once. Learned my lesson fast.
I mean, the other issue we have, and that would be education. And if it's enough of a problem, it doesn't sound like this is one of, like, it's not your child, you're just seeing it?
No, my child's in the car, driving
Okay.
to school.
But if it is, if it's a parent that you know and it is a problem, and they let us know, I can talk to the school resource officers. You have to remember, too, if we educate the kids, they don't necessarily have to cross the road until the bus gets there. And when the bus gets there, the arm comes out and the lights go on. So they could stay on the other side and wait for the bus and then cross. So that's an education thing that we would need to tell them.
You seen this at pick up or drop off, or both?
Both.
So if you do have someone that you know, a neighbor or whatever, and that's one of their kids, and if it is an issue, and you want to contact us, we have school resource officers that cover most of the schools, so we can maybe make an education thing with them, and then we have to hope that they listen to us.
Well, I was going to say they're teenagers.
Yeah.
They see their friend on the other side of the road, they're going to
Yeah.
try to cross the street, so.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Chief.
Welcome, Counselor.
No, and Sergeant Boudreau, we'll let Superintendent Withington make his presentation.
Yeah, Commissioner Erickson tonight was going to talk about crosswalks and the ADA ramps. If you have a curb in front of an old sidewalk, that doesn't meet the ADA standard, so we cannot repaint that crosswalk. And over this past year, we've probably changed 30 intersections to make them ADA compliant, but it's going to take us a long time to get the entire city to be ADA compliant. And even then, where some sidewalks were, you don't have the sight line to put it back. So that crosswalk will not go back. But then again, the plowing, if you see someone parked on the road, you can call us. We will get in hold of the police department. We will meet them there to get that car removed. And as far as paving, we're paving in Ward 1. We're doing Payson, part of Payson, part of Charles, Walnut Street, Crown Street.
Birch Street Passway.
Birch Street Passway.
Part of South
and
Street, right? Up, what's the part
part
of
of
South?
South Street from Electric up past Pride Auto Body on the outbound side. That's all, they started milling today, and they'll continue milling tomorrow. I think they want to pave it this week.
Yeah, so it's 7 streets in total. 7 streets in total. Providence Street,
Yep.
Crown, Nashua, Walnut, Payson, and Birch Street
Yes.
Passway. Side South Street.
And as far as Willisnock Road, I assume you were coming down Willisnock Road and slid down Water Street during a snowstorm?
Yes.
Give us a call. We'll be right there. But then again, years ago, we went to doing most of the city with straight salt, so you wouldn't see any sand there. That is one of the streets that's done in straight salt. All the main lines are done in straight salt. So just give us a call and we'll take care of it.
I'm just going back to a couple different traffic things in your ward. Any input on the configuration we put at the bottom of Walton Street, Walton, Laurel, that crazy intersection? You may have seen the Jersey barriers that we put up to extend it out a little bit further at the corner of Walton, Charles, Laurel. Any input from the ward on that? I think
I think it's great. Now I can look down the hill when I'm coming out there, and I don't have to worry about somebody catching me, because I know I'm clear here, coming down Walton, and then, can't think of the name of the street right now, but anyways, coming down from Laurel. Thank you.
Yeah.
And old age. But anyways, yeah, since you've extended, put that barrier system out there, I think that's great.
there were so many challenges with that
Where
intersection.
the new stop lines were also helped out a lot.
Yeah,
Is that hedge on Laurel and Charles going down
It's good to hear from you because, I mean, I drive that way every day to work, so I go through that daily, and I found it to be extreme, and I'll give credit to DPW, that was their idea to bring that out a little bit further, and Sergeant Boudreau. But it seems to have worked well. I mean, those barriers are temporary, and we're going to go through the winter with that, I would assume.
You're going to leave them there this winter? That was one of my
We're
questions.
going to leave them
yeah.
there this winter, and hopefully, something more permanent will eventually get there so we can get rid of those barrels and put something a little bit more permanent. But I know we've seen reductions in crashes. Just having the opportunity to get out a little bit further and look up Laurel Street has really helped.
Looking down south, I mean, just that little barrier, that little line you put in the road.
Yeah.
That's a hell of a difference to look down that road because the wall was there, you know?
I would ask any of Ward 1 residents at home watching this evening, if you have a concern or a comment on what we did at that intersection, please call the traffic office, and let us know what those concerns may be, because this was a significant intersection, and we really put a lot of time and effort in trying to alleviate some of the concerns there. So your comments would be very helpful to us.
Can we just back up 1 minute? I'm sorry.
Don't be.
On the corner of Valley and Canton Street,
Mm-hmm.
can there be a sign put up saying no parking from here to the corner? No.
We can.
There's no sign that says it.
Yeah.
So,
It's a city ordinance.
but a lot of people don't.
No, I get you. It's like any traffic ordinance or Mass General law. It's the law, and people should know it, that you can't park. It's not a big thing, every sign we put up, and I say this in conjunction with the DPW, because their budget pays for that, and they have a certain amount of money for signs and painting, and every sign that we put up depletes that. So we try to stay strategic in asking them where to put signs. Can we put one up? Yes, and they could.
I've been asking for years.
Yeah, but it's, when we say one sign and we talk about big budgets and everything, but we've learned, and everything has gone up, one post, and Superintendent Withington will probably be better at this because they pay for it, but they're like, what is it, Gary, like
The post and rail, I think, is about $150.
$150 then a sign, so maybe you're up to $200, which doesn't sound like a lot, but everybody wants signs. So then we compound that through the city, and then their budget gets depleted in 6 months, and then I ask for a sign that we really need, and they don't have any money, and we have to wait. So we try to stay strategic. I would suggest first, if you see a car there and it's blatant, call dispatch, and we'll see if we can go out there and educate, and if we have to find them, and if we solve the problem that way, great. And then if we don't, then maybe we go the next step and we put a sign. But we just try to just put them where we need them, because money stretches only so far.
I have spoken to the housing development about that. When they've been out there, I've stopped and I've talked to them about it, but nothing was ever done about it.
Now, something they could do, whether you want to talk to them again or I could talk to them with you or for you, they could paint, you'll see it up by the college, if you paint it yellow, that 20 feet, most people will recognize that they're not supposed to park there. If they would take on something like that, where it's mostly their tenants, is what you're telling me, their maintenance could keep up that paint of that 20 feet of the curbing there, and that would alleviate the DPW from having to do that. And I think most people know when they see that yellow paint that tells them you're not supposed to park there. So that might be an option that they might do. I know they're pretty receptive down there when I've talked to them about things, so I'll talk to them. Yep.
Whatever they did, I mentioned it here last year, from coming out of, I think it's second or third, they were parking in front of the church, the Scottish church. But now it's been corrected, so I don't know, did they put up a sign or did they talk to someone? So
I had a conversation with someone from the church last year, and I know some of our officers, because it wasn't just you, it was some other people that were complaining. I don't believe we put any signage on there, but I think that's an example of what I was talking about. Maybe some education and a little bit of some fines if we have to. And I haven't heard any complaints, so I think it's working over there.
I think it was mostly people from the church that were parking.
Right.
That was the biggest issue.
If my memory serves me correct, our street supervisor had conversation with those at the church, just to talk to their parishioners coming in for service, but I'm glad that worked out. So far.
Is there anything else you wanted to say?
No, that was,
Okay. Any other questions for Superintendent Withington before we close?
Complaint. I've lived on the intersection of Charles and Forest now for 40 years. The opposite corner from me, which is 41 Forest, I believe that house there, there's a sidewalk up there, maybe 20 feet of it from the telephone pole all the way up Charles. It has been rubbled for 40 years. The previous councilor we had, several times I got a hold of him and he was going to get it fixed. And again, we're about to go through this. I was talking to the homeowner the other day, and he said, no reason he doesn't snowblow that, and because in the wintertime the kids come down that street. He says he's all done with that because he's chewing up his auger inside of a snowblower. That sidewalk, I don't know why, but there's 20 feet. You had a blowout there about a month or so ago. We had a blow up in the road. There was a pipe on the ground that blew, and I was going to go over there, stick my nose into it, and say, "Gee, guys, can you do this?" And I should call the DPW for it. But at that little stretch of sidewalk, I mean, he's not going to snowblow it because he's going to ruin a snowblower. But if the kids are going to be coming down there, because like I say, they go to the opposite corner to pick up the bus, can you guys possibly take a look at that and maybe just put a patch of tar on it or something so that, you know, he can snowblow it anyways. So the kids will have a place to walk without stepping into the road. That would be great.
I'll put a petition in to that effect.
Thank you.
I'd like to just close by saying thank you for everybody that came out this evening. You know, we talked a lot about communication tonight. Please don't hesitate to call my department, our department. You provided information this evening on different phone numbers to call, the drug tip line. If you have information of a drug activity somewhere near you, please call the drug tip line. We have an anonymous tip line. If you go to www.fitchburgpolice.com, you can leave a tip there, anonymous tip. All these phone numbers for those watching at home are on the city website. Please don't be afraid to contact the police department. We are only as good as the people that we work for, and communication is key. So thank you for having us this evening.
So I just wanted to say before we close, the next Ward 1 community meeting is going to be on Monday, December 12th, 2022, and Public Health Director Steve Curry and Chief Procurement Officer Mary Delaney are going to be here to make presentations and answer questions. So,
I'm not complaining. I'm going to let you off the hook yet. Rubbish on people's lawns. Okay, across the street from me, there's a family. They make a pile over there the last 2 or 3 weeks, then they have somebody come up, take it by. Now they've got TVs out there in the street. They've got wood all over their lawn. Okay. What's the city ordinance? Who do I call?
You call me, Bruce, and I'll come up there tomorrow. I'll take a picture of it tomorrow.
For those that are watching at home, that's a Board of Health.
It's a Board of Health issue.
And Director Curry, he is on top of that immediately. Yeah. So if you see discarded items like that, that's a Board of Health issue. Yeah. And I know he sends people out immediately. So please. Thank you, Chief.
Another thing, our trash removal, Leominster, you can put out one article a month to get rid of. People are dumping articles all over the place. Just up on Stickney Road, someone just dropped off a couch up there. All right? Because we can't dump them. Not me, it wasn't me. They can't dump it, so they're dropping them off there. And that's like your TVs, other things, people are just dropping them off. Why can't we have our trash removal allow us one article a month to dispose of without having to pay for it?
But that'll be a topic for next month. Definitely, you'll have the right people here to answer those questions.
It's definitely Director Curry.
That's Director Curry.
I can comment on this. We work closely with Director Curry on illegal dumping. We have covert cameras because cameras go much further than just having someone up there. We have covert cameras that we place where we have an influx of illegal dumping. I I won't tell you where they are, but they're out there. And if we, you know, we have in the past, we have charged people with illegal dumping. It's going to get worse because of the restrictions on mattresses. But I can tell you that the Board of Health takes this very serious, and we do work closely with them as a law enforcement tool on trying to tackle illegal dumping.
Your intersection you're talking about, where you got those plastic Jersey barriers up, there's a mattress inside that, been there for a few weeks.
On Walton Street.
Yeah, Walton, Charles, and Laurel.
Good to know. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for coming. Oh, we got one more comment?
Yes.
Yes.
One question and a comment.
Okay.
I'd like to direct my question to the chief of police. It's not pertinent to tonight's subject, like traffic, etc. But does the city of Fitchburg or the police department publish a rules relating to where you can carry a concealed weapon and where you cannot carry a concealed weapon within the city of Fitchburg limits?
That's governed by Mass General Law. So, I mean, there's a whole realm of things that we could talk about. Whether you can carry on school grounds, no. Whether you can carry on a campus, no. Whether you can carry in a federal courthouse or district court, no. So that is governed by Mass General Law, and I would suggest people, if you have a specific question on where you can and cannot carry a concealed weapon, I would defer you to Mass General Law and try to do your due diligence. If you have a question, I have a detective that handles all of my firearms matters. He's specifically assigned where he's the issuing authority under my authority. If you have a specific question on a building, we'd be happy to try to answer it for you.
So I can find that general information online, computer.
Mass General Law is specific on concealed.
I don't want to kill this subject, but on my way from the Chesapeake Bay Tunnel Bridge to Route 95, I had to travel through a couple of small towns. And being in Massachusetts, I heard that these small towns very strictly observe the speed limits. And I go 5 miles per hour below the speed limit. They say if you get caught, it'll make your life miserable. Have a reputation. It's spread from Florida to Massachusetts.
Yeah.
I don't know if you know about those. There are a couple of those. I'm sure you do.
I can name 3 or 4 towns that you're speaking of.
Okay, good. Why can't we establish something like that on the intersection of Newsnack and South Side?
Well, you brought it up, the town of Bolton. Who speeds on 117 in Bolton? No one. Town of Bolton last year responded to probably 3,000 calls a year for service. We responded to 50,000. It's sheer volume. I understand what you're saying, but sheer volume dictates if you have an officer that can dedicate 7 hours to traffic enforcement versus 30 minutes. So
I've worked with people one-on-one for 40 years in my profession. In general, people are not too observant, they're not too obedient to signs, laws, paint on the road, etc. It's a significant amount of people that make life miserable for many people, okay? They go through a red light. Well, it's trivial as long as it doesn't involve a member of the family, okay, an accident. Then it doesn't become trivial, it becomes major. If the police department arrests or makes some arrests or fine a significant number of people at that intersection, do you think that reputation would pervade the city? People would slow down when they come to a red light instead of going through it because the roads are slippery. You should always come slow down at a yellow light.
I think ultimately we want voluntary compliance. We don't. That should be our ultimate goal. Our goal is not to find our way out of situations. I think ultimately voluntary compliance through education is the ultimate goal. Sometimes you have to issue tickets.
So I ask you, has it worked at that intersection?
Which one?
Well, South Street and Newsnack Road. Voluntary compliance?
I think we've done well down there.
You think so?
I do. If you look at the volume of cars that go through there on a daily basis, and to have 34 reported accidents, I think my department's done well. There's always room for improvement. I will always say that. But I think we've done well down there, based on the sheer volume of cars that go through there.
It still remains the #1 crash site.
Every city and town has a #1 crash site.
Our other issue that we run into, sir, is, I don't disagree with you, if we could put an officer down there all the time, but that's one intersection. I have a list, the chief will tell you, in my office, and we break it down by ward. I think it's close to 40 streets with complaints just like you have, and they're legitimate. And we just don't have enough officers to be able to, with our call volume and all the other things that come into it, it's not reasonable that we can put an officer all the time at all of those intersections. So we try to do that one a little bit, this one a little bit, and do our best that way. But we don't have, like, we talked about a Bolton. They have 117, they patrol that. They can dedicate an officer to that for most of the day. Unfortunately, we're not Bolton. We can't do that. We're a bigger city. We just don't have the manpower for all the streets that we have problems on.
The sheer reputation is a deterrent. You don't have to have someone there. You develop a reputation, you don't have to have an officer there eventually. People will know that if you get caught at this intersection, the law is going to be enforced. You're going to get a major fine.
And we do it. Like the chief said, we did it on Ashburnham Street. We've done it down there.
I'm not from Ward 1,
Yep.
but I do travel. As you know, that's obviously a very...
One reputation that I'm proud to say we have is we're a very fair department, we're a very transparent department, and we're an approachable department. So we come to these meetings, we listen to your concerns, we take them back in all sincerity. In fact, tomorrow, I'm meeting with my entire command staff tomorrow. Some of this will come up during discussion tomorrow as we look at what's happening in the city. But I encourage everybody, even those at home, please, take a look at our annual report. I'm proud of what's happening in the city. I'm proud of what 83 minus 7 have done in the last year's time. Being 1 year out of COVID, if we're really out of COVID, to think where we've come in the last 3 years is astonishing. And I'm very proud of the product that we've provided to the citizens of this city. And I'm very grateful for the relationship we have with every ward in the city. So.
The population is growing.
Thank you.
Isn't there a lot more people moving into Fitchburg recently?
Our population went up. Our census was 42 and change, but you still got to count our #1 neighbor, Fitchburg State. You add 6,000 people up there between employees and students. You know, this is a city of 50,000 people. They may not say it on the census, but we are 50,000 strong. And I was born and brought up here. I'm very proud of the fact that this is home for me. And I can honestly say that this city has come a long way in the last decade, and the best is yet to come in this city. And I think it's evident of what you're seeing. So,
Thank you, everyone, for coming, and as I said, what's that?
Just real quick, reason I'm here, I don't live in this ward either, is I'm a commissioner with the Human Rights Commission. And we're trying to visit all of the wards to let people know we exist. So if you have any questions, concerns about how treatment in Fitchburg is in any way, whether it's housing, education, public safety, whatever, I just want people to know that we have an open meeting, third Wednesday of every month at City Hall, and it's open to everybody, and you can also get that information on the website. Fitchburg is a fair city. Part of what we try to do is help Fitchburg be even more fair to everybody. As the chief has helped the city improve a lot. Most of my life has been in Fitchburg. The Human Rights Commission is also available to help the citizens of Fitchburg. Turn to us anytime.
Okay, thank you very much. Good night, everyone.
good night.
Thank you.